All right. Welcome, everyone, to our Flockjay LinkedIn Live event. My name is Chris Cater. I am the manager of customer success at Flockjay, based out of the Atlanta, Georgia, and I am extremely elated to be presenting with you all. I have a special guest that I'm going to introduce you to in just a little bit. But before we dive into introductions, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. So, do you want to let everyone know that this event is being recorded so that you not only can get some gems from our special guest right now, but also you can watch later and share it with your friends, family, and colleagues. We'd also like to have some engagement from you. Be sure to comment and like. Any questions that you have, we'll try to answer within the LinkedIn Live today. But if we can't, you can just drop them down in chat and we'll be sure to make sure that all of your questions are answered. So now, without further ado, the value of video in sales training. I'm going to lend the space to my man Matt to introduce themselves and tell them a little bit, or tell you all a little bit about them.
Hey, Chris, thanks. Appreciate it. Hey, everyone. Matt Schalsey here, Revenue Enablement Manager over at Chili Piper, leading the efforts there of an enablement, also co-founder of the Enablement Squad. You've never heard of it, based in the small triple landlocked state of Nebraska. So not a tech hub, but definitely loving it out here. But yeah, it's a little bit about me.
All right. Thank you so much for that introduction, Matt.
Of course.
You all, I've had the opportunity to learn from Matt already, and I'm super pumped for him to drop more gems than Sonic the Hedgehog for you all today. So let's get started with our first question. Tell us a little bit about your career progression and how you got into sales enablement.
Yeah, I love this question. If anybody's ever heard this question asked to me before, you'll always know one common theme, and it's always by accident. It was kind of fun. I was 10 years in sales with Verizon, doing district management, all of that fun jazz with them. And then eventually worked into a marketing world where I was left in an acquisition and applied for an enablement position. Had no idea what the hell I was jumping into, but it said sales. It was at a great company called Huddle here in Nebraska. If you got into it, it's the Golden Gates. So we were happy to jump in there. And when I got the job, I accepted it. Had no idea again what I was doing. Had no idea what the word enablement meant. So I grabbed a couple books, added some random people on LinkedIn to go ahead and start like trying to learn what they can do and see where I need to perfect my craft. Lo and behold, it's always been a passion of mine. I've always loved training, and this just took my training efforts to a whole new level. And so within a couple of months, I was actually promoted as a senior manager there and leading out another team. So it was a super awesome experience. But I think definitely having a sales and marketing background experience coming into this has definitely set me up for a greater success within my enablement career.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that. That sounds like some accidental goal there that you
Yeah.
found. Well, now that you've been in it for a while, can you tell us a little bit, like, what does sales enablement mean now that you've been in the role and living and excelling at it? From my vantage point, what does it mean to you now?
Yeah. So enablement is basically providing a stage to help promote, grow, and educate those that are in your community or your customers, and making sure that you can really unlock that full potential. So whether that's enhancing your sales or business acumen, or on top of that, just even your own professional or personal development. I think enablement has a broad stroke of what all we can do, from strategy to education to support and guidance. I think that's where a lot of us come in. I think you can see it's a combination between an L&D as well as like career coach, as well as like a sales strategist. And we just kind of merge all of these in together to provide more and deeper enablement for all of our peers and customers, which is usually our go-to-market teams.
Thank you for that breakdown. I could imagine there may be some people listening that, like yourself, was like, "Oh, I've heard of sales enablement, but not too sure." So we appreciate you giving us that breakdown.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we go to the next formal question, I do want to touch on the enablement squad a little bit. If you could share more about this community and what you all are doing and how things are going in the sales enablement world for you all.
Yeah, absolutely. The Enablement Squad is a free online Slack community for anybody that is interested in sales enablement or is in enablement in that general, or even wants to learn more about it. We've got about 1,800 members globally, and from big companies down to small companies, from teams of 50 down to teams of one. we've got it all. Anytime or any question that you have, there's a whole audience there that's helping to contribute to the development of others, as well as templates and advice and questions around tech stack and all that fun jazz. It's one of those communities that I feel that encompasses everybody and doesn't exclude any thought when it comes down to it. There's not a narrative, there's not a motive. It's very vendor agnostic and welcoming to all sorts of point of views within enablement, because we all do it differently. We all teach differently. We all learn differently. It's the exact same way that our community is ran.
I love that. So let's talk in community right now. We're
Yeah.
about to jump into talking about our main subject for our LinkedIn Live today, which is video. Which, like you said, in your enablement squad, you all talk about things that can help enablement all the time. So I would like to know a little bit about why it's important for sales reps to have video as part of their sales training. How have you
Yeah.
found that to be important?
Yeah, definitely. I think video is like one of the most important things that we can have now. Whether you're in a direct in-office setting or a hybrid or completely remote, video provides an impact that it not only like breaks up the monotonous of us speaking to somebody, but provides more of a real life example of how we can actually continue to educate and learn from the different models of our peers. There's so many different ways that we can help coach, which allows us to give you the stepping stones to go ahead and continue to drive your own efforts and basically provide a road for you to drive on. Or there's train, which is giving you the car to drive on that road. If I'm coaching you, the video helps make you think differently about how you're actually going to engage in that sales process. Whereas if I train you, I'm only giving you a script to perform, which a lot of the times, if we get a script, we sound robotic, we're not engaged, we don't find the creative thinking about how we can engage with our customers thoroughly. So when it comes down to it, video has that impact that makes us trigger a thought and provoke us to really think outside the box more creatively for all of our instances with our customers.
Yeah, that's something really interesting that we've noticed too. Not only video from the enablement person, but also getting video from the learners too can help
Yeah.
make sure that we're understanding and that they have an understanding of the content that's being trained and coached to them. So is that something that you've put intentionality into, is or also receiving videos from your learners or from your peers on how they're getting that knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different instances where we can take video from our peers and as well as ourselves. We can tie it into influential contribution to ROI. We can be able to see like, okay, this has worked. Has the script worked continuously for others? Using conversation intelligence tools has helped identify and bridge that gap. Now it's identifying this is what good looks like. How do we store this in a library so that way everybody else can continue to use this? As well as like the closed lost opportunities, right? If we're seeing opportunities that are losing, how do we perfect that pitch? How do we perfect that demo to have it more concise and straight to the point so our buyers are along that same journey as us that we intend for them to have? So the power of video helps delineate both of those. It shows you what needs to be improved as well as what good actually ends up looking like.
Yeah, we appreciate that a lot. And that kind of touches on this next question. As you shared, you were able to take some of your closed loss to learn from. You can take your closed ones to celebrate, and
Yeah.
others can learn from and take some of those. How have you seen that? Now that we talked about that strategy, how have you seen that actually amplify the skills of the reps? We saw
Yeah.
what
So
you're doing. What's the impact?
there's two different ways that I've seen this, right? Like the way I've integrated it. So I can give you a whole playlist of like all of the good stuff of what it all looks like. You take it, you run with it, you do whatever you need to do. But on the
Right.
flip side, right, we can do a couple different things. We've all seen like how do we do a virtual pitch now or a pitch room. So recording your own pitch based off of somebody else's, you get the touch points, you write those down, you perfect it, you record it, and then you can have it basically scored into your own training, either by your peers or your manager or enablement, however you guys want to set that up. On the flip side of it, we're doing things or I've done things in the past where I'll record some prompts, and as we're objection handling. Sorry, tough word today. Objection handling. We're able to cue these prompts and say, "This is my objection. Now, how do you handle that using video?" And so we've had the recording of that, and when we have people actually watch themselves back, we actually have them score their own calls and their own videos to make them feel more engaged and more aware of how they're actually talking and presenting, and if the clarity of what they're actually talking about was well received from the prospect standpoint. And so I think the way that we can utilize video most effectively is by recording ourselves either in a pitch, a demo, or whatever, and rewatching it ourselves. We usually are our worst critics. So we're able to go ahead and influence our own decision and own changes personally by rewatching exactly what we've just done.
Oh, I love that so much. You're right about us being our worst critic. Sometimes I hear my voice and it's like, I hate listening back to myself, but there's so
Absolutely.
much value. So
Yeah,
much
I
value.
won't watch this because I hate my voice afterwards. So yeah, I get you.
Well, one of the questions I have about that, Matt, because what you just said, even me putting myself in the shoes of a rep, I get a lot of value from listening to my playbacks and things. How can you, from an enablement standpoint, build a culture to where people feel vulnerable enough to share those videos with others and are okay? There's a culture where it's okay to kind of listen back to some of the loss and share some of the losses.
Yeah, definitely. I always like to say start small, right? I think my current manager right now has really like instilled that in me a little bit more. But start small, right? If we're asking for people to feel vulnerable when it comes down to a video setting, do maybe one a quarter or one a month and have them record something small. Like, what is a 30-second pitch that you want to use as a small video recording? And let's hear that. Let's work off of that. Afterwards, maybe let's go up and do a cold call. Let's eventually work into a demo. Build that culture of video recording yourself before you're actually navigating those waters abruptly. A lot of people don't like the way that they sound, like you mentioned. A lot of people don't like the way that they present. And half the time, we don't listen to our own calls because we don't want to hear ourselves again. So
Right.
with that, by creating that culture of continuous listening and continuous development, I think it's easy for us to go ahead and navigate that if we start small with small assignments, easy grading, and then we start working up to the bigger things with a little bit more critiquing.
I love that strategy. Yeah, because I remember I worked at Radio Shack and they would ask us to, hey, let's do a role play. It's like, I don't know any of you. I don't want to role play with
Yeah.
you.
Oh,
But
I
if you
hated those
start with
days.
something smaller, yeah, it definitely can help a lot with that vulnerable sense. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So we've already touched on this a little bit, but let's deep dive a little bit more into how the videos can help reps learn from each other when it comes to some of the best practices or things that are happening out in the field.
Yeah. So I think this could also help with on your cultural aspect, right? We have those reps that are very comfortable in their tenure that have been very well experienced. Sometimes they're not maybe the best on the paper and the like administrative side of things, but they have a bomb pitch. And how do we use that? Or how do we use their demo and utilize them? By empowering our senior reps to go ahead and use this template or this platform to go ahead and share their messaging is huge for our new hires. Not only does it say, I want to be like Chris when I, get in my career, or hey, this is actually what good looks like. I can take elements from your pitch and bring that into our trainings today. I can take elements of what's working for you, but also what's working for Lauren later and say, this is what is a combined great pitch. So, how does it help others? It's perfect. I mean, it literally sets the stage for you to take what's going in and develop your own story, as I mentioned before. And then on top of that, when we're bringing in those new hires, they understand start to finish of what great looks like. But then they'll start to develop their own type of calls, recording, and their own videos and feel confident and empowered enough to go ahead and drive that own initiative to speak freely and openly about how they're actually recording their own videos or demos or anything like that.
You're right. So the new reps can learn a lot, and they're getting that contextual information. They're getting the things that work, and sometimes the things that don't work. That it's being shared with them. Let's talk about the with them for those high performers. What's in it for them when it comes to recording their great techniques and the great things that they're doing?
Yeah, a lot of times they don't want to, right? They're complacent and they're just happy where they're at. Like they don't want to do anything more. I love that. So with the more tenured reps, I'm going to say not older. I apologize, but with the tenured reps, right? How do we go ahead and utilize that to make them feel engaged? It's easy. You tell them like, hey, you are like a good gold star standard on this. I want you to be a subject matter expert. I want you to be able to be engaged and show that you are willing to give back to the company, not only just the revenue, but your skill set as well too. How do I create more of you to better the rest of the org? And a lot of the times they feel empowered because they see that they are that gold star, efforts that are being put forth. So they usually are more engaged and more inclined to go ahead and continue.
Okay, so it's some of the verbiage that you give to the high performer, just recapping, letting them know, hey, we want to scale how amazing you are. And that's why it would be beneficial for them to record and share some of their techniques.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So one of the other follow-up questions I have about this peer-to-peer learning actually came from the audience. It's how do you convert real-time learnings into scaled learning experiences?
Yeah, there's a ton of different avenues that you can look into this. Whether you have a scorecard that you've created with Google Forms or you're using conversation intelligence like Gong or Chorus and utilizing those assets with an AI performance based tool, I think that's one way that you can go ahead and continue that, right? You set the standard of what you're wanting to use. You grade it based off of that with an unbiased opinion because the rule sets are already there. You teach those that are using that scorecard how to actually utilize this themselves. So that way the messaging is not go ahead and be blocked, but enhance them and enable them to go ahead and continue to drive their own success by those scorecards. One of the things that I also am doing right now is I build a library, right? Or a stream. One of the things that we're seeing a lot of the times right now in the industry is we're constantly having to update collateral, or constantly having to update new videos, and it's exhausting, especially as a team of one, right? You don't have all that time to do it. But if you set up a stream or you set up these automatic workflows, anything that matches a certain criteria will automatically flow in. And that way you always have top of mind scaled best practices that are in a library easily ready for you to use.
I love that. And that works in conjunction what you were saying earlier about building a culture where that's good, like where people are considering it a positive thing to share. So
Oh,
you have
absolutely.
the build it, they will come. And then, and then you also are building a culture to where they feel comfortable doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's tons of different ways you can create these different streams and avenues for your reps to go ahead and continue to learn.
Yes, yes. And then the other theme that I'm catching that you've said a few times is kind of having that grading scale because, whether it's peer to peer or manager to peer, it kind of does many things, levels the scorecard, right? So that
Right.
we know what we're looking for on those calls. It gives peers to know what to look for when they're scoring their peers call or a judge. So I'm catching that scorecard to be a pretty important piece of your enablement game.
Yeah, a lot of yeah, it definitely is. I think having a baseline of standardization is huge. If you don't have that, like the opinion of one is going to be completely different than the opinion of another, and what good looks like can vary from one person to the next. So if you don't have a standard baseline of what good looks like, it's hard to continue to measure your own success.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Matt. All right. And now one of our final formal questions here that we have a slide for is, we're over halfway through the year.
Yeah.
Can you all believe it, right? How do you plan to end your enablement efforts? What's next for Matt?
Yeah, what's next for me? So at Chili Piper, I'm only a few months in. I've just gotten my feet wet a little bit. We're rolling out one of our first master classes, which is one of our product certifications. So seeing that come to fruition in this first quarter, or in the next quarter, is going to be huge for us. I think we're super excited to get more of our product knowledge outlined and ready to go for the not only our revenue team but for the entire company. So we're excited to see how that's going to impact everybody else. Hopefully, drive further ROI and measure where we're at right now with that particular product, and get more of that product and information and education to make everybody feel a little bit more comfortable. So that's super exciting where I'm at. Obviously, there's a ton of other small win projects that we're looking at doing, but that is by far the one that I'm most excited about by the end of the year.
Okay, well, let's touch on that. So when you mention about ROI for enablement teams, how are you gauging yourself to see, is Matt being as successful as he can be with with the reps?
Yeah, there's a metrics and enablement is one of those that is like a hot topic and a burning topic. Like, how do you get measured? How do you understand
Right.
whether you're doing great or not? There's a lot of different ways that you can look into it. Most commonly is you start your baseline about where the product is at or what the objective of the initiative is. Do a baseline like where are you at, close won, close lost, what does the demos look like, all of that fun jazz based off of revenue. and then what is post 30, 60, 90 off of your own initiative. I think that is one of the most common ways that we're looking at. I personally am looking into different ways about how do I influence the adaptability of our reps to engage in some of those products. So whether that's with a guru or seismic card, how are we utilizing that information or those pieces of content or even videos, right? How do we take what we have in our library to influence other deals to make them more successful? And I think as we start to evaluate what this influential rating is or how we're measuring the influence of our own impact, I think that's going to help drive further and more developed metrics for enablement. A lot of the other times I'm measured based off of revenue, but I'm also based off of like, what is my task, my OKRs for the rest of the month. So how do we measure what the ROI of all that looks like is very convoluted, but also can be very structured if you only want to base it off of revenue, which a lot of the times that's what people care about is just the revenue part of this. But enablement's so much more than a revenue generating component, right? We are so much
Right.
of a culture. We are so much of education. We are so much of training, guidance, content management. How do we go ahead and loop all of those other traits instead of revenue influence all into our own metrics?
Yeah, so it sounds like that engagement portion is important to understand ROI. Another question we got is, what are some ways outside of video that you're driving engagement?
Yeah. Understanding the engagement level of how your learners actually like to learn, I think is probably the most crucial, right? Video can only go so far. If you were to give me a video, I'm going to watch it through and I'm going to tell you this is everything that works great for me. But Chris, you might not be somebody that loves video. I know you are, but you might not be, right? Like, we need something that's going to be more hands-on for you. We want to see something that's going to be a little bit more text heavy, where you can go ahead and read through the logistics of all that. So
Yeah,
understanding how your learners like to learn helps influence your engagement. Now, one of the things that I really like to do with my videos, if I'm doing a presentation, not only do I incorporate some of our reps videos into it, I also bring in videos and clips of other fun things, right? Like, for example, when we jumped into a virtual kickoff plan when COVID
yeah,
started, I used clips of The Office, the US TV show The Office, and brought those in and now said, this is how this clip is going to correlate with our training. It was basically a section header for all of our trainings and how we moved forward with that. Now, giving that break of a clip from something outside of your org or that was a little bit different, or even some comedic relief from some of your reps, right? Like, let's say, for example, a cat jumps on the computer and it like does something wonky. Use those
right.
clips to really break up the monotonous of education and get that engagement realigned, because sometimes you get like the what just happened and kind of the pause of like back to reality and then go forward at the end. So bringing the different engagement from video, that's different ways to do it. To also drive other engagement, make sure that you have tools and resources that are available that are like what your team actually wants. So understanding who your customers are. I have a battle card right now at Chili Piper that I look at it and I think it's great. But if I take it to the team and say, how would you guys utilize this? They're like, we would never use that. That to me is a waste of my resources and it's a waste of time for them to actually utilize that. So how do we collaborate together to make sure that this is something that they would be engaged using and being able to translate that back to our own content development? So understanding your audience, making sure that you're building out materials that are relevant and persistent to them, that they would be able to use in their day-to-day lives.
So many great gems in that. The part about breaking up some of the monotonous parts at Flockjay, we had a chance to have a meeting as furry animals. In the latest Zoom update, they let you be a virtual character, and we
Love
all
it.
really took advantage of that. So
Yeah, there's so many different ways. Like Zoom right now has immersive view too. Like if you're looking for a different way to have a meeting, throw it in an immersive view. If you don't know what that is, check it out. It throws people off, but it's so fun and engaging that you're like, okay, cool. I mean, you could be in a boardroom, you could be on the patio, you could be in a classroom. It depends on what you want to be in, but there's so many different ways to do it, and I definitely encourage you guys to utilize that.
a lot of fun things we can do with tech nowadays. You know,
Absolutely.
going back to something else that you mentioned, when you talked about how you want to gauge the entire enablement team and how your impact is with each other reps, what you said back there, that was really important. One of the other questions I have is, how do you gauge independent pieces of content? So how would you know if one particular video is doing really well, or adding a lot of impact for your reps?
I think when you're finding one particular piece of content, it's hard to measure what the influence or impact that one piece is going to do. I think when I'm looking at building out my resources, I look at what is in like the resource packet, right? I have a video, I have a one pager, I have all of that. All of those are going to influence a deal. Same way that if I was a rep, I'm going to send you out a demo call. I'm going to send you out a one pager. I'm going to send you out a pricing agreement. I'm going to send you out anything else, customer stories, right? All of that
Right.
together is what influences a deal. It's not just the demo that one, it should have the heaviest influence, but all the other little pieces to show that you are there as a partner versus a vendor helps drives that deal together. So me personally, one video is not going to make a difference. One pager isn't going to make a difference. It's how do I use that resource packet together? And I think when you're building out your content library, so like Guru, for example, is who we're using, and I have the text, I have the engagement, I have a couple videos from Gong of like what's working best on that, and I have everything outlined all together of being like, if you're going against X, use all of this to your advantage, or use what you want, but here's everything that's going to help you win. This is the resource bucket that you need to have. And I think finding a way to engage that is going to be probably the best way to evaluate that.
I love that thought process because while I'm worried about that one video, as you just said, it's the package. It
Yeah,
makes me think of how my favorite meal is a 4 for 4 from Wendy's. Now, when I eat a burger, I need some nuggets to go along with it. You cannot give me
absolutely.
nuggets now.
Feel ya.
It's the
Feel
whole
ya
meal.
there. I
One of
love
the
it.
other questions from the audience: do you see other departments as your customer as well, like marketing, product, etc.? And how do you engage with them if so?
Absolutely. 100% to this. So early on in my career, I spoke with a mentor and he told me this, and it's stuck with me forever. And it's kind of my mantra with enablement, right? We are the Rosetta Stone of a company. We are there to translate between marketing to product to engineering to sales to CS to people ops, whatever it is. We are there to take all of their languages and distribute the messaging to the right person. So when I see other departments as my customer, absolutely. Marketing is a byproduct, although they'll help influence me on what I'm delivering to our team. I'm also there to help enable them with any resources or concerns that the sales team is having. If the marketing collateral sucks, then sales is going to tell me or tell their managers, which is then going to tell me, which then I tell marketing. And so it's this bilateral street of both of us working together. Same thing with product. If you have a product and the product team is like, oh, this is flawless, we love it, it's great, but our sales team says, no, the product actually sucks, we need to bilateral change that out again. And we need to make sure that the product that product team built had a purpose, and we need to make sure that we realign the sales expectations of what that purpose of the product was. So when it comes down to those customers, right? Although I'm enabling primarily the revenue org or the go-to-market teams, they still are a customer because I'm there to help build any additional metrics there. Sorry, I had a quick sneeze, but yeah, I definitely find there's ways to cross collaborate and be that Rosetta Stone to translate back and forth from both all customers or all aspects of the company.
That's awesome. Oh man, this conversation, just like I figured, would be a lot of great gems for enablement leaders. And now you're saying some different things for the marketing team to get some information from the sales reps themselves on providing that input and being the voice of the customer as they're speaking back. And as you stated, enablement can be that Rosetta Stone to let everyone know, hey, here's what's going on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, I got a comment from the audience. We cold calling right now. Let's go. I'm down.
I love that. And I think honestly, like if you're cold calling from an SDR perspective, right? Typically you're not doing video, but I think there's different ways to utilize video or even the audio transcripts from this. So be able to go ahead and emphasize what tools and resources you have to increase that experience. If it is a good call without video, utilize it. Just download the audio, bring it in, share it with the group. If you're doing team meetings, I encourage every team meeting, whether it's an AE, AM, SDR, CS, support, whatever it is, but always highlight one great call or one great segment every week. I know at our all hands, we always take a minute to hear a customer success story. or hear our customer vision of what they've actually said about our products too. And I think that that is so powerful to regain and regroup the messaging as a team and as a whole.
You know, that kind of makes me think about something you said earlier about you were able to gain insight from your team by prompting them because not everyone knows what to proactively share when it
Oh
comes
yeah.
to their calls. Uh, and so I'm curious, what are some other great prompts that you found to really pull that information out of the team that can help everyone else?
Yeah, there's the classic voluntold method, right? Our AM team does this really well. They say, okay, you have Chris, you'll have this week, I'll have the next week, Lauren, you'll have the week right after that. So that's the voluntold message right there. I also encourage our team to go ahead as a whole and say one call per week. You need to go ahead and ask for feedback back on those. And so it encourages them and motivates them to get the feedback that they want. Now, if they give me the perfect call and they know it's perfect, they get an automatic 0. Like
Oh,
they're not gonna pass that, right? Because they know like this is a feedback channel. This isn't a hey, like glow about how awesome I did.
yeah.
So as we're taking those feedbacks, right, we encourage them to upload where they want those feedbacks back in. So that's one way. Also, if you can just say like a theme of the week, right? Like we want to say, hey, we are going against competitor X. Okay, anybody that had a call with competitor X, submit those and let's see how you guys did. Or hey, let's work through this together and see how Chris navigated all of these objections that they had while they were in the middle of that demo.
Yeah, and so I love how selfless you're being with this knowledge. One of the other questions I have is so it's time for me to judge that call. What are some things that are on my personal scorecard of how I judge my own calls as a rep?
Yeah, the one thing that I'll always say, and I always have this on every scorecard, was did they command the message or did they speak with confidence? If you lack either one of those, you're basically going to let the customer drive wherever you want, and typically you're not going to have the outcomes that you're going to want to have. If it is a demo, right? Did they speak about the products thoroughly? Did they try to include any other solutions on top of the existing product that they originally went in to go pitch? Did they find any other discovery questions that were available, and did they dive deeper in? And was there an opportunity to multi-thread even further? I think with those four, right, we're able to evaluate: did we learn anything new? Did we sell anything more? Were we able to add more people? And were we able to go ahead and bring value and confidence into ourselves? So with those four tactics, like we're able to go ahead and measure any type of great quality. And I think if you're not adhering to any one of those sorts, you might want to reevaluate some scorecards, because having those four metrics or any others, I'm happy to always learn more. But with those four, have seen great results to go ahead and drive further conversations and create greater confidence across the board.
Yes, I hope everyone was writing those down to make their scorecards for peer-to-peer, manager-to-peer, or even some self-reflection.
Absolutely.
I want to test my confidence on a few of my old calls and see how I did because I hadn't thought about that being something to grade on.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of the things I recognized this a couple times or a couple companies ago with the SDR team. They were a very green team. They were very new and very young. And when I asked them, why aren't you making calls? A lot of them were not confident in making calls. And you see that typically now with SDRs these days, because we have so many other mediums to go ahead and connect with people: LinkedIn, email, Twitter, Instagram, however you want to go about it, right? But if you actually got back on the phone, what instance and how much also, or how many other meetings would you actually be able to book? But the confidence part is by far the most daunting part of jumping back on that call.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm a big sports fan, and this conversation is making me think about the fact that you having those prompts of us maybe practicing cold call or call opener, call closers. Those are like at bats in baseball, right? Like
Yeah.
it's giving me that practice so that when I'm up there up at the real plate, it's I've done this 100 times already.
Yeah. Same thing with your free throws, right? Everybody hated free throw shooting. Just stand at the line and practice. That's all you got to continue to do.
That's true. That's true. And those videos can give us that practice and allow us to get feedback from peers, self reflection, and our manager. So that's
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that's a great way to get some reps in.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to toy around with your scorecards, right? There's a lot of different ways you can do it. I encourage you to formulate any of it. Use Google Forms if you don't have any tools that have scorecards built in, or use your LMSs. A lot of the times they have grading rubrics on that as well too, so you're able to use any of that.
Okay, okay. And so just to reiterate something you said earlier, you said we can start slow. and we can maybe do once a quarter to once a month, being
Yeah.
able to grade and kind of work our way up once we implement a system like this where we're submitting videos and doing scorecards. So just recapping, that was one of the
Yeah.
strategies that we can do.
I mean, you don't want to, right? 0 to 60 was always a cool thing to do. It doesn't work that way in sales. It doesn't work that way in education, right? You don't get your degree in 2 months. You usually get it over a period of time.
Okay. And then is there a best practice for storing some of that information? Like you said, we can start off with Google Forms, and when it comes to our scorecards, but any other advice or recommendations or tips on how to store, so that way maybe we can reflect back to see how much we've grown.
Yeah, we talked about metrics earlier. You can find a baseline revenue goal of where you're at, and basically off of the objective that you're trying to hit, right? We want to do more calls. Take your baseline activity of calls and see how further or how much further that actually increases off of those scorecards, or how much demos to close one do we get, or demo to contract do we get, based off of the examples that we're trying to run off of. So have a starting point, have
Okay.
a goal of where you want to do, measure that 30, 60, 90, and you should be able to go ahead and differentiate how you're continuing to drive that success. I think the other part of how to actually measure that is take sentiment. Have the reps. Like, how did you feel this exercise was? How did you feel that this was engaging? Did you feel that this improved your way of thinking, your way of doing? And if you're getting bad sentiment, it's either a reflection of how bad the program is, or how much more coaching our team actually needs to have as well. So either one of those, utilize them how you want, but that's where I would go with those.
Okay. Yeah, we appreciate this a lot, Matt. And I don't see any more questions from the listeners and watchers just yet. If you all do, feel free to continue throwing them in. Before we end, I do have one more big question from me, Matt.
Yeah.
Through all this knowledge that we've been talking about in our LinkedIn Live today, what's the one thing that you suggest if we want to really elevate our enablement, whether it's just us or we have a team of enablement squad?
Yeah.
What's one tip that we can do right now to start?
I would say survey your leaders and identify where your quick wins could be. That's going to be huge for those that are just starting out in the enablement space. If you're an established enablement group, find ways to make a deep impact with your customers, which is our go-to-market reps. Interview your go-to-market team and understand where do they feel unsupported, and dive in that way.
Okay, so you all heard it from the leader of the enablement squad. Those are some things that you can do right now today to start elevating your performance and your team's performance inside of enablement. We all thank you very much. This was a Flockjay LinkedIn Live with Matt. Thank you so much for joining, Matt. I
Of
really enjoyed
course.
the conversation with you.
Awesome.
You,
Thank you so
you
much,
all
Chris.
can you all can continue to drop your questions down. And if you want to learn more about Flockjay, you can visit our website at flockjay.com. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.